So today is day 2 of packing, and hey guys, so we are on day 3 of packing. Day 900 of packing. So I've got this stuff in my pantry and I'm wondering, do I really need it? This stuff over here. All of this. Normal baking stuff. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I have some rolled oats, some lentils and quinoa, some white rice, powdered sugar, brown sugar, wheat flour, sugar. I would like to say that we're going to use it, but it's been sitting there and I haven't used it. I'm thinking that it's probably out of date. So I'm thinking about taking everything except for the lentils and the quinoa, because I do actually like those. I just forget that I have them. But I'm thinking about dumping everything else and only rebuying it as I need it, if I need it. The brown sugar is the only thing that I could see using, and that's because every once in a while I make baked beans. I really wish that you could buy these things in like small containers instead of getting like a big brown sugar and a big thing of powdered sugar and 5 pounds of flour. I wish that I could get them in smaller quantities. I don't really bake anymore. It doesn't align with our goals and where we're trying to get to. So I'm thinking about getting rid of it and just washing out the containers and moving them, but moving them empty. It'll save on weight. I'm pretty sure the stuff in them has already expired and there's no way of knowing because they're out of the bags. And a lot of that I moved with us when we moved here from Vermont a year ago. Well, I made the decision. I just had to make a snap decision, just like I did with my clothes. Just get rid of it. Stop dicking around and thinking that you're gonna make something out of expired food. The only one I was considering keeping besides the quinoa, the lentils, and the white rice was the brown sugar, because I could foresee using that, but not for like another 3 months. Usually it's something that we make during a family reunion camping trip. So I'm glad that I threw it away, because I literally had to take a spoon and dig it out of there because it was rock hard. Here it is. Got these all taken apart and cleaned. Here's our white rice that we actually do use. One I use mainly for the kitchen. It's got stuff like an empty box for our electric kettle. I'm gonna go ahead and pack it away. I do like to keep boxes because it makes things fit in a certain spot really well rather than having all these odd shapes. I have a nice square spot to work with, and it also comes with all the padding and everything inside so that our stuff hopefully gets where we're going without being broken. Just a shout out to this little scooter. I think it's made by Hyper Tough from Walmart. This thing saves my bacon in the house. It doesn't do great outside. If you're on a parking lot or something like that, it does okay. It does not do great on gravel. But it is great for in the house for moving these totes around because they can get pretty heavy. So I can just kind of scooter it around and then get it close to the front door so that Justin can load up the trailer. I like to give everything a good wipe down because when we get where we're going, it's already going to be a lot to have everything to unpack. I would rather everything be clean when we get there. also just like my counter appliances to be clean because we look at them every day. And I'm trying to learn to romanticize my life. And part of that for me is for things to look nice. So my grandma had one of these clocks. Now she had the boy, not the girl. But I remember when I was a kid going to her house, and she had, I think it was a parakeet, and she took care of a man named John who had cerebral palsy and was wheelchair bound and nonverbal. And she would let the bird out. And I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I just remember getting the biggest kick out of this bird landing on top of her cat clock. And as a kid, I thought that was hilarious, that this bird was landing on top of a cat. And I would always sit on John's, so he had a communication board on the top of his wheelchair because he could read, he was in there, he just couldn't communicate. And so he would point to these words that were on this board, and it had the alphabet and all of that. And I would sit on top of there, crisscross applesauce, and he would teach me how to spell bad words, basically. He thought it was hilarious. And we would get the biggest kick and laugh out of this bird landing on top of a cat. And I would start cackling, and then he would start cackling. And I don't know, it was just a very fond memory of my Grandma Ruth when I was a kid. And when my grandma died, this clock had disappeared. And that was when they asked, like, what was something that you would want, you know, that was Grandma Ruth's. I mentioned the clock. Well, it was probably an original Kit Kat clock. And so my mom actually bought me one for Christmas a few years ago. And I picked the girl one with the necklace and the fancy little eyelashes. But I was really bummed because that clock had disappeared. And that was like one of my fond memories at my grandma's house in Turkey, Missouri. So I don't know where that clock ever ended up, but I've got this one now. And every time I look at it, I think of my Grandma Ruth and that stinking parakeet and John, who has since passed. But I remember good memories of sitting on top of his communication board, learning how to spell bad words, and just talking with him. He was very smart. He once computers became a household item, like he went nuts on the internet and was able to communicate in such just an astonishing way. And by then he was living in like a long-term care facility and whatnot, but one of my boys got to meet him before he passed, even though he was pretty little. But yeah, he was a fun guy. So we're gonna pack up our Kit Kat clock here. Took her tail off and get her batteries out and get her all ready to make the trip. So this guy here we actually used quite a bit more when we were in Greeley. Don't use it all that much here, but it was nice to have to put a few extra things on, but it wasn't necessarily like the most useful thing here because we did have these built-in shelves, and when we were in Greeley we didn't have these, so we needed something to put shampoo and things on rather than just putting them on the floor of the shower. I love command hooks. Command hooks are my best friend. They are a renter's best friend. Very rarely have I had them actually tear up the walls. Most of the time they do a really good job. On a couple of instances I've had some issues, but for the most part they're good. One thing I've learned about packing is pack it like you mean it. because I could just fold these flaps, but if I tape this box shut, I'm not gonna have to worry about it again. Where if I just fold the flaps over, it is going to come open at some point. And then I'm gonna be chasing parts and pieces of a shower cabinet. When if I just tape the box, I'm done. So I keep these different sized hooks in individual bags along with the refill sticky pieces. That way I can easily just come in here and grab what I want. So like my clock was hung on this little one, I find a bag that has those because it's kind of like Christmas lights. If you take the time to put them away correctly the first time, you don't have to go through a bunch of malarkey putting them away the second time. And honestly, I need my life to be easy when we're moving. It just makes things so much nicer that I know that all of these in here are the same size. They all have the back. I don't have to worry about parts and pieces missing. I just need my life to be organized most of the time at a baseline, but definitely while we're moving and while we're unpacking and I'm looking for hooks to be able to hang things. So this apartment was furnished when we got here. So first thing that I do whenever I get to a new apartment is I take a video of what the apartment looks like. Where were the decorations? Because most of the time we completely rearrange, suit it to how we like, take things off the wall or off shelves that our cat's probably gonna play with or knock down. And so when we're resetting the apartment, that video is priceless. Plus, if I see any damage, I make sure to get that in the video. That way I can get my deposit back. So this reusable paper towel has been a lifesaver during this packing process. I've been able to wipe everything down. You can put soap on it, rinse it off, use it over and over and over again. It has saved me so many bleach wipes. Just because I could put a little bit of soap on it, a little bit of vinegar on it, I can wipe all the counters and cabinets and all the shelves down, and I'm not using a ton of bleach wipes or mopping up a bunch of water. These things are the bomb. Do you ever feel like you're being watched? So I have a throw blanket for the couch. Oop, there's a kitty. I have my electric blanket, which is also about the size of a throw blanket, but then I have my large yoga pillow that I just sit on the floor on. That's huge and round, and I had to fold it a little bit to get it in this bag. This is an extra large bag. So this is what I'm using. So you can see this measures roughly 30 inches by roughly 18 inches. And we're gonna suck this guy down and see what he is after. Okay, so now this is roughly 21 inches. And at its widest, 14 inches, but here's the difference. Right there. So that is really sucked down. So we have a rat living in the PlayStation box. Actually, it's Bruce. So Bruce knocked over our pile of blankets to go in a vacuum bag so he could hide.
They saw me put the camera on them.
This is like one of those horror movies that you see where the person is chopping and you're just waiting for them to chop their freaking finger off. That's probably like the worst part of a horror movie for me, is when people are freaking chopping things on a cutting board. You just know that their finger is done. I promise you that if I cut my finger off, I will show it. Probably get put in YouTube jail for that one.
This is a pretty good slicer. I actually kind of like this peeler. It's a pretty good peeler. I just got it at Walmart. But it's a pretty decent one. I need shorter pieces. Again, one of those horror movie things. I know you're waiting for me to take my thumb knuckle off. Me too. I can't be trusted around a mandolin. And that's like no joke. It doesn't matter how many times I use a mandolin. I cut the crap out of myself every time. There we are. Now this video will be shortened up, but it took 12 minutes and I made a salad.
Good dinner. 48 hours. I'm set. Here's this incredibly hardworking man who packed that trailer and the cats and the car, and we have too much crap. But Ruby is all hitched up and ready to go. Hey guys, after 5 days of packing and moving, we are finally saying goodbye to our apartment here in Lynchburg, and we're off to Iowa City. So we're saying goodbye to 202 for the last time.